99.9% of you never read the entire policy. All you're doing is looking for the cheapest insurance, and you look at the deck page, and the deck page gives you about 5% of the real information.
If that.
That's my segue.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to say, I would probably bet 95% of you in here have the wrong insurance, and you don't know.
This is a topic that I think a lot of us as investors and hosts do not pay enough attention to, and it is something that can come up and bite you and literally ruin your life, and it's insurance. Here's what I'm here to share with all of you guys. This is one of the most undervalued components is insurance.
What I want to do is just kind of shifts everybody's mindset a little bit, okay, about risk management. What most consumers don't do is they don't get themselves in a risk management mindset. When you're running a business, whether you're just an RBO or you are a property manager managing thousands of properties, somebody needs to be in charge of risk management. I have a stranger walking into my house. Do I have a handrail on the stairs? Do I have appropriate signage for my amenities? Do I have helmets for bicycles? And is that a potential risk? Very simple things like that is the start of educating yourself around how to manage risk. And then the insurance policy needs to be part of a partnership in your business. Most retail insurance policies get it wrong. And I'm sorry to say, I would probably bet 95% of you in here have the wrong insurance, and you don't know.
You can't just go to Farmers Insurance or State Farm and get a homeowner's policy and then add on an addendum for STRs and be fully covered the way that you guys cover.
Correct. So most of the retail market, they're gonna, if it's a second home, they're gonna sell you what's called a DP3 or a landlord policy. When you look at your insurance, if you see DP3 on it, or DP1 or DP2, that's dwelling property. That's meant for landlords, long-term rentals. And if you're doing long-term rentals, then that's perfectly fine and acceptable for that particular risk. The problem is they have business activity exclusion. How many people in here make more than $2,500 a year on their vacation rental? Yeah, most everybody. Some people getting that in a night and they're rocking regular homeowners policies that aren't gonna cover them. And not just property damage, I mean, we're talking liability too.
He just said a word that I want all of you to write down, or at least burn into the back of your head, and it's exclusions. What you're gonna find out is, like he said, that probably 95 to 96% of you are not insured properly. And I see it all the time, and there's 30,000 people in my Facebook group, and everybody's asking, where do I get insurance? And everybody defaults to the cheapest. I'm here with Nick to hopefully try to change your mindset. If you have 2 or 3 STRs or 5 STRs, God forbid you've got 20 or 50, and then you have something that's catastrophic, you could lose everything. Everything.
On the topic of those exclusions, so the business activity exclusion is the biggest one in the retail market, but you can endorse through a short-term rental rider to change that business activity exclusion. But here's the problem. When you see that deck page, like you perfectly described, it only has very limited information. You see occupancy short-term rental, most of our minds go to, this is the right policy for me because it says short-term rental. But perfectly to Bill's point, that 2-page deck tells you nothing about what is or what is not covered. The beautiful thing about insurance is the first time you read a full insurance policy, it makes no sense. Read that policy 2 more times and you'll probably know more about that policy than the agent that sold it to you. Insurance is black and white. They make it read like crazy legal jargon, but it's all laid out right in there. So this is where you need to spend more time on the insurance question and the insurance component of your business. Don't spend 20 minutes online, get a quote, just don't talk to anybody and then buy it because it's cheap. Call, talk, ask questions, spend a few hours on this, buy the policy that fits what you're doing, and then move on growing your business and making money.
What are some of those questions they should be asking?
The first thing you need to think about before you start asking questions around specifically liability is the amenities. What amenities are we going to have at our property? If you're lakefront, then these dwelling landlord policies with premises liability. The second my guests step off my property line, I no longer have liability protection.
So you're talking about they leave your grass, they step onto the gangway to walk to the dock, and you've got jet skis, you've got paddle boards, you've got kayaks, whatever, No coverage.
No coverage. No coverage. So if you're offering amenities at your property that take the guest off your property line, you cannot operate with a homeowner's or a landlord policy. You absolutely have to have a commercial policy, and then every commercial policy is built differently. But one thing I see all the time is a recreational activities exclusion, and it's like the most broad definition in insurance on what a recreational activity. You got a hiking trail that your property backs up to, recreational activity. Even though you got the commercial policy, you don't have coverage for that. You may be pet friendly, you may not be pet friendly. If you want to be pet friendly, you better have no breed or liability limitation around dogs or pets when it comes to liability. But people sneak dogs into vacation rentals all the time. And if that dog bites somebody off the property line, premises liability, no coverage.
So how do we find out if we're buying a new property if proper State Farm farmers will cover kayaks at the property?
That is initially, with anybody, you're going to go online or you're going to pick up a phone and call, and they're going to run through some basic property details. So how we operate with our business, we want to look at your online listing. And then we'll also advise you, and how I advise everybody is every policy has a phone number to the underwriter, and you can ask these questions. This is a vacation rental policy. Am I covered for people using my kayak in the lake? If they tell you no, then you either have to remove that as an amenity or look at upgrading your insurance. Proper was built on the weaknesses of the retail insurance market. We don't sell any other type of insurance. We only sell to short-term and mid-term rental properties. And we removed exclusions to bring in more coverage. We were first to market with bed bug protection. We were first to market and still only in market for squatters protection. We're the only company in the world that has flea protection for pet-friendly properties for remediating that. We're the only company that has no limit around guest-caused damage at your property. Every insurance has what's called a property entrustment or dishonesty exclusion. Every policy, I don't care what insurance you have, every annual home or property policy has that. And what it means is when you hand the keys over to somebody who is not an owner of the property and they damage your home, you have no coverage. None. Game over. Client, 2017, and they had a short-term rental through Airbnb, and they stayed on a Friday. His neighbor called him and said there was a party. So he kicks these people out, okay? And next night, they break into the house, throw a huge party, cause about $110,000 in damage to his home. Well, now you don't have coverage from the OTA. AirCover's not going to respond to that because it was not an active booking. And all my competitors, if you want to call them that, wouldn't pay a penny on that loss. When we paid $110,000 because we don't have a limit on that type of damage, we're really the only ones who are going to pay that limit all the way up to your policy limits, right? Versus you paying for that out of your own pocket. So that's the big one on the property side. And from a liability standpoint, we only have like 8 exclusions total.
Well, you mentioned the word liability, right? And I think a lot of people, you should hopefully have access to an app or your policies. If you don't, look at what your liability coverage is. Most of you are going to cap out at 300 to 500,000, and it shows right on your deck page what your liability is. There's a reason that I have them underwrite $2 million in additional liability. I might get 500,000 or even $1 million through proper. I think you max out at $1 million, right, on the primary policy?
We start at $1 million. But we can bump up to $2 million before any excess or umbrellas come into play. So on the topic of liability, it's easily our biggest exposure for everybody in this room next to driving your car. First major liability in the United States is a vehicle. For us in this room, our second major liability is our short-term rental assets. A lot of people have this false understanding that my base insurance is whatever, but if I have an umbrella, $1 million umbrella, a $10 million umbrella, I don't care how big it is, it's gonna cover me. It's not. It's not, because of umbrella is what's called follow form coverage. And that's a big misunderstanding out there. It's a conversation we have every day where people will reach out to us and it's kind of like, why'd you call proper? What's going on? And it's, I'm just looking around. I heard about you guys, but I have a $1 million+ umbrella, so I'm not too worried about that. And then now we really have to break down in educating in our consultative process around how this stuff really works. How do all these parts of the puzzle fit? And the key is that your base policy on that asset has to be correct first. Follow form coverage specifically means that whatever is excluded in your base policy is not covered by your umbrella. The umbrella will only respond when the base limit of liability is 100% depleted, okay? So with us, we have $1 million in liability. And let's say, Bill, you have a number of properties and you place excess lines through us for $10 million over the top of the base limit. Somebody has to sue you and win for more than $1 million before that umbrella will even kick in, or that excess policy, as it's called in the commercial sector.
And it can't be under an exclusion of the primary policy.
Correct.
So if ABC Insurance Company says you can't have a barrel sauna, you can't have paddle boards. Let's say it's paddle boards, and then somebody, God forbid, falls off and drowns, and they sue me, I lose $1 million on ABC company, and I have $10 million with you, you're not gonna cover it.
No.
Because it's an exclusion on the primary policy. I look at this as protecting our future.
Absolutely.
Right? I have a lady in my Host Academy program about right after Christmas. Literally, it was a 2 or 3-year-old fell into a septic tank. Literally opened up the lid and fell into the septic tank. I mean, about 4 years ago, literally Google Gulf Shores Airbnb pool accident, like an $11 million judgment against the owner that bankrupted them. All because they didn't have signage and disclosure of, the sun shelf, and the guy dove into the pool. A lot of us about proper, because like the first time I used you guys, I have this mega Banner Elk outdoor fire pit, and they made me put 12 inches of railing, like 80 feet, and it was like $4,000 with lights on it. And I wasn't happy about it. But I did my fact checking. And I went to State Farm, I went to Farmers, I went to some of the others that are in our space. They didn't care, but you know what was gonna happen? They weren't gonna cover it if somebody fell off the back of it. If you're with Proper and you get those emails that say, hey, you need railing here, you need more lighting here, that security camera isn't facing the parking lot or the road, so that doesn't count on your back porch. That's all to protect you. I didn't realize that, like most of you don't. It's to protect if I have a claim. Correct?
Yeah, the way we like to look at how we do business with everybody is you can come to us and you can think of us as any other insurance company out there or any other insurance agent, and insurance sucks, it's the devil, I need to have it for my mortgage, I don't care, I want the cheap stuff, high deductibles, fine. But the way we do business more is we're your risk management partner. So we do underwrite our properties heavy. I'm not gonna shy away from that. I've been chewed out by plenty of clients who don't want to put in a handrail. They don't want to put in depth markers at their swimming pool because they think it's ugly. They don't want to get rid of grandpa's rope swing in the front yard hanging from the old oak tree. I'm sorry, but there's been 3 deaths at short-term rentals with rope swings. Get rid of the rope swing. What we're doing with this underwriting is we're coming in and helping you through managing the risk, because it's our job at the end of the day, and it's not if, it's when things go wrong. And if there's a liability incident, we need defensibility. Bill said exclusion. I want you to also think about defensibility of my property. And an attorney client of ours said it best. You cannot waive negligence. Building code, especially commercial building codes, because that's how you'll be sued, is as a commercial property, requires handrails and guardrails. Guardrails are, I think, 28 inches of elevation. Handrails is typically 4 or more risers on the stairs require a graspable handrail. If you fail to put that in and say you didn't want to buy insurance with us because you didn't want to put that, you'll be tried as a commercial entity. You might have liability protection under premises liability because it happened in the home or on the property line, but there's no defensibility. They're paying a limit claim. That is $1 million lawsuit and they win every time. But you put in that handrail, you put in that guardrail, there's a slip and fall accident. We're able to defend you, and we're keeping you out of court tied up for 2 years trying to fight this thing, because you'll be viewed as negligent for not following the building code and not putting proper safety measures in place at your property. Yes, underwriting is annoying. Yes, we require certain things that you might think be ugly around your property, but I promise you, one, you're not going to lose bookings because of it. Have you ever lost bookings because of fire extinguishers?
Nope.
No. Nobody's lost bookings because they have depth markers around the pool or safety equipment at the pool. You are defending yourself in that, and we're going to help walk you through that through underwriting. We're going to help you get your property to these standards. So again, not if, but when there is a claim, we're able to correctly handle the situation and defend you, so you're not paying tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket for an attorney because you failed to do the basic safety stuff around your property.